Hello and welcome to Edukemy's YouTube channel. My name is Harsh and in this video we shall discuss the feature news for today, 8th of March 2022. Today's feature news is on gender equality today for a sustainable tomorrow. This is the theme of the International Women's Day today. Happy Women's Day, International Women's Day to all of you. Hi Kriti, Netra, Vivek, Amlan, Ashish, Hima, Babani, Tiasha, all of you. All right. Hi Kanupriya, welcome. I don't think you were there in the current affairs video today, but never mind. Thank you for coming back. All right. Amlan wants. All right. Where to send Amlan? That is the point. No, to Taiwan or to Kiev. Where to send it? Hi Pooja, welcome. Welcome. Pooja, there's a comment for you. I have put a comment for yourself. Keep talking and asking. You said you want to become a collector but don't know how. There are people here, they have some idea. We all have some idea, and through collection of these bits and pieces, you will be able to do far more than becoming a collector, right? Seek, and the gems aren't far to find, Pooja. Okay, so let's start this. Okay, Babani says, sir, there was a question you asked previously, the reason behind PM 300 levels. Sir, what will be the answer if this is not because of nitrogen sulfur? All right, yes, it is not nitrogen or sulfur. Particulate matter 300 levels for all the entities which contribute to particulate matter pollution. I don't want to reveal this right now. All right, let me quickly tell you what it is. Either of the particles which are the most prominent in the atmosphere, it is their level which has to be considered. If it is particulate matter 2.5, then PM levels, whatever that we see, that is indicative is of 2.5. If particulate matter 10 is the one which has the highest proportion of dirt, then that will be declared there. But then again, the proportion in which the particles exist in the atmosphere and its standardization in this PM 100, 200 or 300 levels, it is different, right? I hope you're able to understand what I'm saying. It was present in the CPCB website. I would like to share that in details because that is definitely a good question for prelims exam. I would have asked this question. We commonly know what is PM 2.5, we know what is PM 10, but then this particulate matter that we see in the atmosphere, the dirt level, what does it actually reflect? PM 2.5 or 10, and how is it calculated? All right. So let's begin this. You've got to visit in your plane, Amlan. That's the point that people are mentioning. All right, let's get back to the feature news. And before this, there's a quick, update for you people. This is from Ukraine itself. So the update is this, that Mr. Putin says that Western sanctions that they're imposing will be in the likes of war. If you impose sanctions on Russia, there will be warlike situations. They have said if you impose no-fly zone over Ukraine, then this is not good. You are interfering in the bilateral matter. This is one thing that he has said. The other thing he has said just today itself, that if you try to decrease the oil demands, then we will ensure that we will not supply gases to many places, right? Fuel to many places, and this will be catastrophic. This is what Mr. Putin has said, right? Also, China hikes military spendings by 7.1%, set 5.5 GDP targets. So China hiking military spending, what is the reason here? Who is coercing China? Who is forcing China? Nobody. Nobody is forcing China. USA is far off. Russia is a friend. Who is the one who is threatening whom? We know that well. And this is where I would like to quickly show you the military spendings, military expenditure as percentage of GDP. Saudi Arabia, the largest importer of military devices around the world. Saudi Arabia, 8.4% of the GDP is their expenditure, and second is India, right? The second largest importer in the world, spending around 2.5 to 2.9% of the GDP on military expenditure. Israel, Russia, USA, all the countries also expend a lot of amount on military expenditure as a part of GDP. And then we have China spending around less than 2% on its GDP, but then the amount is huge. The amount, this is around $200 billion, and India's is around $70 billion, right? So even if the percentage is less, the GDP is far bigger of China, and that is why more percentage, right? So which are the countries are spending more on their military expenditure? Saudi Arabia, Israel, Russia, USA, India, South Korea, UK, France, Australia, China, Italy, Germany, Canada, Brazil, Japan. And interestingly, military expenditure is high at these places, but they are not in fights. Can you imagine? Who are in fights? Israel is in little fight, Russia is in fight, Saudi Arabia for preemptive strikes or defense, USA defending itself, and who else in Europe is in fight? None of them. But still building the new capabilities. All right, so this is the update. Getting back to our feature news for today, which is on gender equality today for a sustainable tomorrow. Now, this is phenomenally beautiful that you people have mentioned here. The points that you have mentioned, a quick reading of some of the points that you have mentioned, and then we'll get on to the feature news for today. So Kriti says, yes, Kriti says, wage gap, good word to use. Employment opportunities, periodic labor force survey report, right? So good that you are also using some data alongside. Higher share in household work, right? Unpaid household work, right? There is a statistics also about it, right? Women conduct almost 5 to 6 hours of household work, which is unpaid, and men have around 52 minutes, right? So there's a gap of 3 to 4 times in the unpaid household work that the women do. Face brunt of retrograde laws. Thank you for mentioning conjugal rights, property rights, right? Good one. Social inequality. Bhavani says social inequality, wage inequality, inequality in workforce. All right. Political representation, property rights. Okay, good. Pay gaps, access to education, child marriage, domestic violence, reproductive rights, dowry, marital rape, discrimination at every level of society, women leadership, inequality. Okay, acknowledge these points, Hima. Good. Emotional, sexual, physical abuse. Representation in parliament is less, disproportionately affect the climate disasters. Thank you. This was also a question asked in UPSC, disproportionately affected because of climate disasters, women, right? Question asked in the UPSC exam itself. Okay. And then temple entry in Sabrimala, good example. Religious inequalities, compulsory education is not in higher education, higher burden of contraception, childbearing, rearing, STEM education, informal sector economy. So good points, very, very powerful. Literacy gap, okay, income gap, ideas for change, good ones. So for example, the idea of change, one of them is the bus driver in Delhi government, right? MCTs, bus drivers, this is good one, right? The second one that you have placed here is, which I especially appreciate, is that of bodily autonomy and reproductive rights. It was in news, right? Women must have rights over when they want to bear the child or if they want to drop the child, right? Women should have those rights. Skill development, and this is where I appreciate some specific pointers put in by Kriti. Have a look at these points. Vigyan Jyoti scheme, Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, nudge effect via campaigns like Selfie with Daughter, common service centers, or the service centers for one-stop service centers. Three Manoraksha scheme. Just yesterday we discussed this particular scheme, right? Providing sanitary napkins and nominal fees, nominal rates. So good ones. Ashish says lesser participation in STEM. Good, right? In this, Nishtha has mentioned a very good point that we had covered earlier. Delhi, IIT Delhi providing STEM education counseling, right? Netra also providing quite a few points. Good. So I really appreciate the ideas that you have put here. All right. Crisis within the walls, domestic violence. Good point put. Thank you. Right. So a lot of points that you put, I'd like to show them through images here. All right. Let's go ahead. Now, before we get into that aspect of understanding women, let us understand sustainable development goals, because largely this is United Nations developed platform of looking at equality for women, right? Although determinant of everybody's efforts in all societies, however, under some paradigm we are working, that is under this paradigm of Sustainable Development Goals 2030, empowering everybody, not ensuring that everybody is empowered, nobody is poor, nobody is hungry, and gender roles cut across each of the Sustainable Development Goals, each of them, right? So we must understand that gender roles have a significant proportion to play when we look at poverty across the world, hunger across the world, inequalities across the world, availability of clean water and sanitation, climate action, everywhere there is a disparity between what men have and what women have. So this could be, see, we can talk about a lot of points, but there must be a credible source which we can pick up and we can actually keep referring. So sustainable development goal becomes a very, very relevant theme for all of us. For example, poverty. Women are in a state of abject poverty more than men are at. The availability of property rights, the salaries that they receive, the ancestral property that they are availed, women are subjected to more poverty. It is also found that women, when they save money or they spend more on family finances. And when men preserve money or they spend more on investment. So look at the level at which women operate. They operate at the level of family, right? Hunger, right? Not only hunger, when you look at forced displacement, whatever is happening in Ukraine is because of the impact of war. But when you look at places in Africa, when we look at Myanmar, Afghanistan, more than 75% of the people who rehabilitate because of forced displacement, whether inside the country or outside the country, they are women and children. So this is also proportional to hunger. Women are not only creators of life, they are also creators of family, right? And they cannot be subjected to poverty and hunger. Otherwise, it leads to malnutrition of the child. It leads to depriving of the basic rights of that individual, that woman itself. So, but then these two prime indicators, the first two indicators, they themselves are not doing well. And if they are not doing well, if women are in more state of abject poverty, not relative poverty, abject poverty, where, see, poverty is a relative term, right? If I have 100 rupees and you have 15 rupees, you would say, I am poor. But then there has to be a threshold minimum below which it is abject poverty. We will not be able to sustain ourselves. And women, there's a far bigger population of women who are in this particular state. And this is in millions around the whole world, right? And if poverty and hunger are not met, how about good health? It will definitely not be met. What about quality education? We see a disparity in accessing digital devices. We see a disparity in the presence of health facilities for women, right? Look at the presence of anemia. Look at the presence of diseases in women, prevalence and males. The availability of education, the simplest availability of education parameters in India is the literacy rate, which is 10% indices lesser for females than men. Gender equality is not ensured, right? Clean water and sanitization, women are the one who are impacted the maximum, and that is why they have been given important stakeholdership in Swajal mission in rural areas, right? So they are the ones who are managing through self-help groups these water stations, right? Clean water and sanitation, because if they are the ones who work in kitchen, not saying that they must, but this is what we see traditionally happening. They are the ones who work in the kitchen. They are the ones who handle the sanitation of house. They are the ones who have to handle the cleaning of utensils, the cleaning of clothes in traditional families. And because of this, they have to also look for potable water, right? And this is where they spend a major chunk of their daily routine, right? This is the reason because of which many girls have dropped out of schools. Not me. This is many other reports speaking, United Nations, down to earth, environment report speaking, right? Affordable and clean energy. See, it is women who face the brunt of the traditional coal or wood fuel, right? And this leads to pollution, home interior pollution. Affordable and clean energy, they are the ones who require them more. This also leads to goodness and well-being, all of them interrelated. Decent work and economic growth, a part of directive principles of the state policy. This is the reason that we had the International Women's Rights Day in the first place, right? Economic conditions, decent conditions of work, equality of pay, equality of adult franchise, this should be there. Industry, innovation and infrastructure. You people have mentioned rightly that the political participation, managerial level, director level or CEO level participation of women is dismal, especially in a country like India. Not even 20%. You said 20%, it is 10% in India. The number of parliamentarians that we have proportional is hardly 10 to 11% in India, right? And this is the state of affairs. And this is the reason that we also introduced 33% reservation in the local body elections in certain states, not throughout the country because it is a state subject. So this is an important change. right? So you see how women participation is cutting across all the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, right? Responsible consumption and production. Consumption and production at the level of family, at the level of agriculture, at the level of services and industry, right? I was reading one of the speeches by Prime Minister. Any of the prime ministers are, because prime ministers' speeches usually happen to be visionary in approach. They rightly said that if you look at the availability of opportunity that was given to a male or a female alongside, probably women would have far exceeded the expectations, right? So, but then availability is important. Are we making the opportunities available or not? And if we make them available, then possibly there will be more responsible consumption production. There will be sustainable cities and communities. There will be lesser inequalities, right? Women and males, they actually relate with feminine and masculine quality. I had shared this earlier. Feminine and masculine qualities. And feminine traits are not to do only with females. This is also got to do with males. Feminine and masculine traits. For example, one of the masculine traits is being brave. Feminine trait is being humble. Feminine trait is being adjusting. These are good qualities, not bad qualities. And masculine traits are being outspoken, something like that, something on these lines. I hope you understand what I'm saying. And this can also lead to certain issues. For example, this could lead to arrogance. This could lead to overactivism. On the other hand, feminine traits could lead to some issues. For example, servility. It could lead to subjugation, right? And what we need is a balance of all these qualities in everybody, right? Each human must have feminine and masculine traits, all right? So if that is available with people, the world will be a beautiful place to live, and sustainable development goals will automatically be achieved. So when we decipher a theme like this, all I would like you to do, when the horizon is so broad, I would like you to do is look at sustainable development from the perspective of society, environment, ecology, right? So how do women participate in economy, how they participate in society, and how in environment? If you look at these pointers, you would be able to understand it. And then there's a parameter of governance as well. Governance lies at the basis of it, right? So women leadership in private government jobs or at homes. Home leadership is what? As simple as finances, controlling the finances, or having the capacity to make decisions. And mind you, you have not put the important Pew Research Center report that 90% Indians think, whether be males or females, they think that it is women who has to be obeying man in Indian family. You did not put that point. I really missed that point here. All right. You look at economy in agriculture, males have gotten to urban areas. It is females who are handling the agriculture at homes, and they are not the ones who have been given property rights. If they are not given property rights, they will not be able to take loans or credit from the banks. And this leads to further deprivation amongst those families where women is the prime bread earner in rural areas. See, economy, one of the points. Then if you look at the other kind of economy that women have, for example, the care, we studied about women in migration, no, in one of the feature news few days back. So when you look at that feature news, it spoke majorly of how and what are the reasons for women participating in urban economic activities. There has been an increased migration of women in informal employment, care economy, right? Care economy or informal economy, for example, sewing, for example, participating in self-help groups, taking care of children in urban areas, household workers and laborers, informal economy. This is also, though it can be treated as a good employment, but then are they being treated at par with other employment, giving them decent amount of pay, ensuring that rights of these informal workers are also preserved? No, it is not at par with others, right? When you look at economic participation in leadership, what about women present at the managerial levels, leadership levels, in corporates, in government? Not there. But yes, in civil services selection, let me assure you all, 33% participation of women is there in the final merit list. You must appreciate the fact that 33% women get through civil service examination, and rest of the 66, 67 are males. Of course, with more participation of females, this is bound to rise. All right. So economy, this is the level. Society, they have to fight their way in at every place, right from the homes to society to personal life. We will look at it, and please do not take it personally. I'm not speaking of anybody in individual here or individual family, but this general parlance we keep hearing and we keep seeing things. This is only mere reflection of that, and also a way in which we can encourage women to grow further, right? We can do our bit here. An environment. So let us look at each of the pointers which can actually help us understand and decipher the issues largely. So it is not only women. When we look at elders, try deciphering the key of elders through society, through economy, through environment. How can they participate? What are the issues, negatives? What are the positives? What are the cases you have, or examples, or data that you have? This is how every theme, every last theme that can be read, that can be studied, it will also help you in essays. All right. You can also divide it from the way economy has to be looked at: agriculture, dairy, fishing, forestry, secondary, participation, issues or advantages, right? So let us look at women. This image itself rightly is indicative of the multitasking nature of the women, right? Men, what they do is largely, not speaking of every man, my father does all his labor activities by himself. He cleans his utensils by himself, he washes his own clothes, even when we have got a machine and other people who are working at home. But then largely speaking of women in general, they take care of the baby. They also speak on phone to our parents, right? They also participate in kitchen activities. They also are working on a laptop alongside, work from home. Imagine the kind of multitasking that they do. And then they also have to take care of the baby, cleaning and housing, grooming. They pay attention to house for 5-6 hours every day. Not me, many reports speaking. And then average time spent by a man in household activity is 52 minutes, less than an hour a day, less than an hour. So 3 to 4 times more work allotted to women. Not only that, if you look at rural areas, proportion of time spent by women is in going to collect water. This has led to girl children not even going to school. In employment, if you see the payment, there has been a skewed level of payment. Although we speak of equality of work at places, but then it has been found through research that the pay that women receive for the same job done is lesser than what man receives. When you look at agricultural activity, as I mentioned, that the availability of credit to women is not in proportion to man, because they are not the holders of property. In fact, even if they are wives of the people who own that property, they would be treated as agricultural laborers because they don't own the property, right? On the other hand, the man is in urban area and then they are not able to take agricultural credit. Look at the education levels of girl child during these times, pandemic, right? Many of the children lost their parents. Many of the children, they were forcefully married, or they were married voluntarily in traditional families in India. This happened majorly to the girl child. And this is the reason that we have back to school campaign. This is the reason that we want the children to get back to school. Looking at, see, this is the present livelihood levels, right? Home, economy, etc. Now, look at what is happening in exceptional circumstances, right? Circumstances, this is the cultural rooting that we have, right? Sati Pratha. Not only that, child marriage still rampant in our country. We are talking of 21 and 18. Start looking at what is happening at 15 to girl children, right? So just attaining that particular age of puberty, however, mentally, emotionally not mature enough, and they also do not have self-sustenance. And even then, society ensures that the marriage also happens, especially in tribal families, rural areas, people less educated, those places. The impact of displacement, forced displacement, is high on women and children. And when we start looking at them from the perspective of informal economy, again an impact, because they are a major part of informal economy, gig economy setup. So the two examples that I mentioned, they become again relevant here as well, right? So you look at the society, economy, culture, and now look at the level at which they have to face another level of maltreatment. There are two important violences which United Nations itself has highlighted in the last year's report, right? So one of them is IPV, intimate partner violence. Please start using this word. This is a very important word. United Nations itself has recognized intimate partner violence as one of the forms of crime. Along with that, digital violence, what was perpetrated in society as the physical form of violence, which would lead into sexual assault, harassment, or following somebody, doing something that is not conducive to women dignity. That has translated during COVID times to digital violence, right? This digital violence has perpetrated in the lives of all human beings, especially women, because the physical forms have reduced, right? So intimate partner violence, digital violence, they have to fight all this in addition to the cultural factors, the economic factors, and the social factors that I just displayed to you. This makes me think. I get sensitive of the struggles that people have. This is not case to case basis. This is the story of many families in our own country, in our own society, in our own neighborhood, right? So stalking is not something uncommon. And imagine the cases of violence against communities, against castes, even when the woman is not the prime victim or prime party of the tussle, she could be the one who is actually recipient of these kind of incidences, right? Women's head shaved, paraded naked, all these things keep happening in society. Why? Did they participate? Did they do something? And even if something happened, this is not how we treat the people in our country. This is but this is a reflection of what is happening in society, and we have to fight this, and this is what is happening around. I appalled. But when you look at just the opposite, worth a glare, shining stars, Indian stars, right? Mother Teresa, Indian. Kiran Bedi, Indian, first IPS officer, women recipient of a Nobel Prize, first Prime Minister of First Lady Prime Minister of the country, First Lady President of the country. Look at a person like Sarojini Naidu, women in fighting positions, women as astronauts, and women as people who are doing every bit in their house, in their home. Wherever given the opportunity, they have outshined whatever was the previous feat. Yeah. When I look at my own family, my mother, my sisters, everybody is working, and I see the kind of struggles, and I myself did not know to a until a very mature age. See, many of us were not given sex education. Many of us were not sensitized. I did not myself, I did not like biology as much while I was in school, and I did not understand what is puberty and what is menstruation and what is the monthly cycle and how there is something called as PMS, how it happens. And I never was sensitive to the fact that this happens in my family as well, and I must be more sensitive. And to this date, I have not been able to recognize these kind of traits, and this is my shortcoming, right? I have not been able to see a lot of such kind of injustice in my family, right? But I have seen the kind of lesser education that I have myself, right? More sensitivity is required from our end, right? Far more than what we are, and more so for those people who are the center of the family, center of society, right? A family loses a father, and source of economy is lost, source of society is lost. But a family loses a mother, the root of the family is lost. That is how it is spoken of, right? So although it might seem as maybe in conversations important, but then at a deeper level it is far more worthy to treat a woman and to ensure that their rights are preserved. This is not women rights, this is human rights that we are speaking of, right? So you say Kanya Siksha Parivesh. Thank you Pooja. Absolutely. Femininity, feminine sensitivity, emotional, devoted. Yes, these are qualities of feminine behavior, character. Witch hunting also happens in Assam. Yeah, all and many of these acid attack, rightly mentioned, yes. And when you mention things like acid attack and witch hunting, this is not this is propaganda, right? Many of the cases of witch hunting, they have been alleged only. No, there is nothing called as witch. All right, but then people are treated like that. Look at the kind of data that we have. So pick up some data like this. For example, when I showed you the data on caregiving or nurses, midwives, 80% of them United Nations women. Remember this. Remember the mobile gender gap report that I said. 25% of women own smartphones, but 41% own were by men. Similarly, you don't have to note all of this, but largely understand. For example, 10-11% representation in Indian Parliament of women. Climate change affects the women disproportionately. For example, availability of water, right? Going far off places. 11% more likely to report food insecurity, that is for women, than men. And this is the reason that government also recognizes this. And for the same reason, the government has ensured that many of the direct benefit transfers that happen in the women's account rather than men account. That's true. Indian government also recognizes this, right? Because traditional families, they say the male, member or male bread earner would go and, get indulged in gambling or spend the money in alcohol. On the other hand, women will take care of the family. That is the kind of difference that we speak of, right? So women spend more time on unpaid caregiving. Okay. Women have experienced sexual or physical violence at least once in their life, and the proportion is, it says 35, and I feel this is grossly under mentioned, right? This is more than 2/3 of the women facing this kind of violence. There are places where they speak of 90% women facing this kind of violence, right? Women and girls are in charge of water collection in 80% household without excess of water on premises. See, United Nations speaking on this. Global gender pay gap is 23%. So not only pay gap, but availability of employment. You remember the Pew report? It said during times of need and distress, 75% people, 50% directly enforced that men should get the job, and 75% people largely said that yes, it should be largely men who should be given the jobs during times of distress. So availability of jobs, the mentality towards jobs, the availability in managerial or leadership roles in parliament, right? Poverty, gender gap in poverty. See, a very good point mentioned here. Gender gap, especially in terms of poverty in the age group of 25 to 34, this is maximum felt for women and this particular age, because this is the time when they are young mothers. This is the time when they leave their employment and they start taking care of the family. So the gender poverty gap at this particular age is maximum. Gender gaps in poverty are widest at the age of 25 to 34. Imagine what would be the impact when you write a point like this in examination. This will reflect your sensitivity toward this particular issue, which needs not only attention but supreme level of dedication to work. So what is required is to eliminate violence at personal levels, at social levels, right? What is required is to give economic opportunities to women, right? Enabling them, make them participants in decision making. This is what is required in the present times, right? On one hand, when we see there is unavailability of toilets, I would have shown you, far better toilets, but this is the reality. This is the best that is available in rural schools, and this is also not available in many places. Even if toilet is available, there is no water. Even if water is available, the toilet is located far off and it is dilapidated. It is not repaired well. Yeah, it is not maintained well. Even if water is there, it is not maintained enough. And if the schools are far off, people do not send their daughters to the school, right? And this is where government said we will provide cycles. See, you should be able to judge by the conversation that I'm making that we are only looking at struggling with empowering women. We are not even looking at the far advanced things, right? If women are able to achieve feats like getting into Indian police service or becoming astronauts, or becoming the best of the doctors around the world, it is only because of their determination. And this is happening. This is only exceedingly doing better with time. against all these odds, of society that I have shown, against these odds, this is all this violence that we see. This is not. This also cuts across economic sections, cuts across all the regions, urban, rural, developed country or developed India, or undeveloped India, underdeveloped India. People with finances, with lesser finances, all of them impacted, right? So hats off to the people here who are participants, helping each other, right? We all are fighting, and so are the important stakeholders in our society, women. If you look at the Aisha report, All India Survey on Higher Education, it clearly states that one of the stark realities that I want to present is that of engineering and technology. One of the STEM courses, engineering technology, is the fourth major stream with 37 lakh students. The share of male students is 71%, and the share of female students is only 29%, right? You can look at this, right? In engineering, the proportion of males is far higher, 70%, and females is far less. Medical science stream shows a different picture with higher number of female students. Out of 13.5 lakh, 8 lakh are females. So around 65% proportion is that of females in medical science, but in engineering, which has got a far higher number of students, engineering has got 37 lakh students and medical has got only 13 lakh students, right? You can see the participation of female largely is less. So largely struggling, but then women, on the basis of their caliber themselves, are exceedingly doing well. All right. So Kriti says verbal abuse. Yes. And see, many of the abuses, they go scot-free because we do not register those crimes. They are not spoken of. The society, the family itself downplays all of it. And this is the reason that one of the High Court judgments said that stalking contributes to a person gazing the other person for more than, I think, 13 or 14 seconds. That was the entity that was given, 13, 14. But how do we calculate 13 seconds, 14 seconds? Unless and until it has happened for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, nobody will be able to even record on phone, right? So I also take note of incidences where I see something is not good. I start immediately, at least voice recording it, because this is how I am at least able to maintain a level of understanding that I have a proof of something that happened, right? And this cannot be proved all the time. Feminization of poverty, yes. Feminization of agriculture, feminization of migration. Kriti, yeah, I hope you people are able to relate to this. This is very significant. Imagine we are creating the India of future while we converse right now, especially in village. Verbal abuse, beating is common after men get drunk. Yes. All right. Okay. So let's be sensitive to each of it and let's do the best that we can to remove all these ills of society. This is the reason that International Women's Day this year has themed itself with gender equality today for a sustainable tomorrow. If we are not able to sustain this equality for today, will women be the ones who could lead the family, or will there be a point of no return? Yes, there will be, right? There will be a point of no return for all of us in case we are not able to maintain sanity in our own families, right? So gender just climate solutions, increasing women leadership in green economy, building women and green girls resilience to climate impacts, and increasing the use of data on gender equality and climate. See, largely focused on climate, but we studied the theme of women in totality. Now, this is where I start looking at how technology can be a driver for women transformation. Technology, we look at technology, no? So let me give you examples then. Please remember that Swiggy example, good example for case study for corporate governance, corporate social responsibilities. Another good example of this is the availability of our economy through platforms, platform economy. See, so through platform economy, women can start their own entrepreneurship, right? Through platform economy, for example, urban company itself, they can all get registered and start giving services to other people, right? So this is one good example how technology can be used and devised to in the aid of women. Similarly, availability of Swayam portal, availability of the digital Sakshar Abhiyan in India, right? Through this, people are able to receive education at far-flung areas, and also empowering through adult education. Female literacy is getting empowered, right? Availability of health services. More than 1 lakh people availed the health services through one portal that the government had designed. And this was a very significant move by the government. I think it was not even 1 lakh, it was 1 crore plus services received by female, and most of the services were received by females. Can you tell me which was that scheme in which females were able to have these teleconversations with doctors during COVID times? See, so this is where women are facing transformation with the help of technology. Start looking at multiple examples: health, education, skill development, each of them, right? So we will burst the myth, or we will burst the issue that technology is a divider. Technology is an enabler for women empowerment, right? Work from home economy, it has only enabled women to participate better at house and be able to divide times at equity levels at household work and office work. So when they do not have to go to office, the time of commutation, the effort it takes, the finances it takes, it can all again be diverted for better activities. See, so gender equality is required in education and labor market. Absolutely. Gender access to productive resources and opportunity. Gender equality in labor market. There are so many innovations which are happening, which are pro women. One example that I gave, which I just thought of, is that when we have scooters, why do we have men sitting from both the sides, and those are enabled for women, but then women have to balance themselves only from one side, sitting from one side? It is not empowering women in a way, right? So we should have technology aids which are empowering both the genders, right? One reason for this is because possibly, just thinking about it, possibly because these instruments, devices were designed by males, right? So when you can start relate to gender empowerment through various sustainable development goals, sustainable development goal 5, sustainable development goal 13, climate change. So these become more relevant to you, all right? Unsustainable development and vice versa. Women and girls experience greatest climate impact and crisis as it amplifies the existing gender inequalities, amplifies, accentuates, degrades, each of it, right? They constitute the majority of world's poor and are more dependent on natural resources with climate change, right? So when climate change happens, when lockdown happens, when any natural disaster happens, who is the one who is impacted the most? The person who is at the lowermost level of the hierarchy is impacted the most. People who do not have resources, they are further pushed to depravity or poverty, abject and absolute poverty, right? And women are at that level. This is the reason that they face more of issues, right? Women also face historical disadvantages. I am only speaking of India. If you look at African countries, there is a culture of genital mutilation as well. This is inhumane to an extreme. Happens in countries like Nigeria, not at institutional level, but yes, Boko Haram, all those institutions, they indulge in this. Women are among the most vulnerable to the impacts of unsustainable practices and climate change because they have no independent income or land rights. See? So getting impacted and then further being alienated because they don't have resources enough. Right? So what can be done? Mitigation and adaptation efforts. What can be mitigated? We must mitigate the traditional or parochial mindset. What can be adapted to is the climate. All right. Policies need to be rethought and redesigned through gender responsive approach. One example, I remember I had also given opinion on the Justice Verma Committee. When the Verma Committee was appointed in the year 2012-13, I also gave some inputs. One of the inputs that I had given was that we must have micro level leaders and male leaders in the family or in the society. For example, if we have Sachin Tendulkar and Mahendra Singh Dhoni, MS Dhoni speaking of women empowerment, we must have people at the local level speaking about it so that the males are empowered, so that it shows that the males at national levels, at state levels, at district levels also participate in economies. Imagine the district commissioner or the SP of the district, they participating in women sensitive activities. If it is done at regular levels, all the forces along with them will be sensitized. They will be participating more in their own activities, and they will be sensitized further when they deal with such cases with other people. Is it not true? It is absolutely true. So these are the kind of innovative responses that can be adopted by the government, right? Creating leadership roles and awarding people through community level approaches. All right. Providing good quality employment, women access to productive assets, removing discriminatory barriers that prevent women from participating in labor market, eliminating gender gaps. Look at, this is where I say, look at the directive principles of state policy. You must remember them. I am asking you all the time, fundamental rights, DPSPs, fundamental duties must be by-hearted by you. This will lead to FR, fundamental rights. This will lead to you understanding a lot of things about answer writing. You will be able to base a lot of your answers on DPSPs itself and fundamental duties. All right. That is what has been reflected through sustainable development goals or whatever pointers that we see right now. Right. So what did we study today? We studied today a lot of aspects about women empowerment. We understood the context in which women empowerment has been discussed, that is today, and 8 March, what happened in 1914, and after that so many protests. How women development relates to all sustainable development goals, cuts across all the 17 sustainable development goals that we have, and how they are impacted. So we understood the social, economic, historical and cultural dimensions and environmental dimensions, which are environment or climate change dimensions, which impact women in both the ways, positive ways and negative ways, right? We also understood the examples of change or transformation through some cases, right? So this is what we did today. Let me see. And the question for today is, gender equality can lead to sustainable development. Explain. When you talk about gender equality and it leading to sustainability, please do not look at it from the perspective only of climate change. Climate change is one perspective which the sustainable development goals provides. But then what about sustenance of society? What about sustenance of economy? What about sustenance of family and cultural values? All of them, if you see, sustenance at global level, climate change is only a part of it. So treat it, at par with the whole society at large and not just through climate change. Let me see if you have questions here. Sanjeevni, thank you, Hima. Very nice. Maasai tribes in Africa. Masai Mara tribes. I don't know what is the discrimination that they are a part of, but I don't know about that, Preeti. Swadhar Greh, yes, Swadhar Greh are used to empower women who are destitute, who are in difficult circumstances, to re-employ them, to create the sources of employment and skills for them. Swadhar Greh, thank you. I want you to start using these terms. Not a lot of people know about this, and not a lot of people are empowered enough. You spend your time. All you need to do is keep revising this. It will become a part of you. It must become a part of you for next 2 years. 1 year in the examination process and half a more year for the result, because in case you want to reappear again to escalate your ranks, you must remember all this. This is how toppers succeed all the time. Sanjeevni, Swadhar Greh, start using this. Feminization of poverty, as Kriti mentioned, all of these, feminization of migration, feminization of agriculture, these are themes. Question asked straight away on these themes. Okay, genital mutilation, all right, Maasai tribes. See, if it is a tribal culture, it's fine. I am not aware, but then it is also something that is done against the individual's will. This is done by some specific communities, and this is not treated as humane. Okay. Hima also says FGM in 27 countries of Africa. All right. See. So you like this initiative enough? You share some love through likes, comments, and shares. Right now, the topic is hot in your mind. Just, scribble down some points. That is more than enough. But note down these keywords. We keep speaking of these words. Just note down these 4-5 words in the chats. And then whatever we discuss, some points very relevant in the form of the current affairs discussion answers. So thank you for this. The cases become very relevant for you. Start remembering them. See? So thank you for participation. We will see you tomorrow evening for current affairs, and after that the featured discussion. Women become a very important topic, theme, when you look at the civil service examination, right? They not only form direct themes, but indirectly a lot of points can be pulled for improvement of economy. For example, women participation in economy, Indian economy, can lead it to grow 3 point some percent of GDP itself, just participation. If you start calculating women participation and calculating the informal work in the paid employment, then the GDP increases far more, right? So so this is what is the point that I'm making, that start looking at perspectives of economy, climate change, environment, governance, leadership, international relation, security, polity, ethics, geography, history, society, social issues, all of them from the sensitive eyes that we all have, from the perspective of women, how it is going to help women, how it is going to empower the communities. And not only women, you should start escalating your thoughts to children, education, right? Elder, increasing employment, making India a leader in the world, and then centrality of women, right? So let's see, what do you have to say here? You have to say good night. Good night, Amlan. Good night, Ashish, Netra, Niranjan, welcome. Niranjan, we would like to see you in the current affairs also. Vivek, good night. Kim, good night. Hima, Kriti, good night. Tiyasha, good night. Babani, all right. Good night, all of you. Thank you for participation, and please note down the important ADEC from this article. See you tomorrow evening. Thank you. Good night.